that's awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, Jeff Crane here with Tokenize, Puerto Rico 2024. Sitting next to my good friend, Mark. Mark, I've known you for a handful of years now, and I think it's because we bumped into each other at the same events over and over and over again.
Well, you got to be in it to win it, you know? I mean, persistence, being there, being incremental, being intentional, you know, not being an asshole. That's what I say to my sons. It's like, you show up, you work hard, and don't be an asshole. And all of a sudden, you're ahead of 98% of the world.
Absolutely. Open the door for the lady. Be kind, right? Be kind, rewind. So, Mark, you're here in Puerto Rico. How many times have you been to Puerto Rico?
I think this is my 4th time.
Is it?
Yeah. I think the first one was the event that they had over at the Vanderbilt Hotel. It was like, I think it was 2019, like right after the hurricane.
Yep.
Kind of a
What a great time. That was so amazing, right? Yeah, so they had it at the Condado Beach Club, Vanderbilt. You had D10E, like Coin Agenda. It was fabulous. And that was during the ICO days.
Yeah, right, yeah. So at that time, I was involved with what was the biggest security token exchange at the time called Swarm.
Yeah.
So I was in charge of fundraising, business
I know
development.
that. Wow, I even remember their logo was like a bird. It was like a geometric bird or something.
Exactly. And so that was a lot of fun. And then I was advising probably like 8 different projects on, you know, go to market and fundraise. And, you know, those were why.
Is that your background?
Those are long times. My background is kind of as a startup person. I've done 4 different tech startups. I built the world's largest video game website. It was acquired by AOL Time Warner.
Wow.
And in Web.1. Built an ad tech platform. My early thing, I introduced chocolate chip cookies to the country of Sweden. Kind of crazy. And
you're the guy who brought chocolate cookies. I was whatever who that was.
That's me. And then after the company got acquired by AOL, a partner and I started a consultancy. So we were helping companies with go-to-market, fundraising, kind of COO sorts of things. And so I love building. I mean, I get excited about helping really good people do great things.
Well, when you were going from event to event, and I don't think I ever asked you, because what's interesting about our industry is we don't identify people by what they do. We just identify people by who they are. And I never really asked you, like, what are you doing and getting into stuff? So when you were going to these events, were you looking for partners? Were you just waiting for somebody to approach you? What was the strategy?
Yeah, when I was at Swarm, we were looking for partners. We're doing a lot of work with family offices, learned all about that world. And, you know, by default, you really understand what a business is like, what the ecosystem is like, who the players are. And so I was approached by a recruiter, and they were like, hey, Anheuser-Busch, the world's biggest beer maker, is looking for someone to run their global blockchain strategy. I'm like, what are you talking about? What's Anheuser-Busch doing? Like, well, we have 3 different initiatives around like international shipping, around, you know, customer onboarding, supply chain management. They need someone to manage it. No one really understands all that. So I came into Anheuser-Busch for like a year and a half, and it was really cool. And so we built several different projects that, you know, got launched and worked out. And then the guy who was the head of innovation there was like, hey, you know the video game world too? Can you help us out with video games? So I had a really cool portfolio, and there was an innovation hub called the Beer Garage in Silicon Valley. And it was really fun. And then COVID came, and I don't know if you recall this, but Anheuser-Busch obviously distributes beer to bars, and 95% of the world's bars were closed for at least a year. So their breweries literally went from brewing beer to making hand sanitizer. They're like, wow, liquid alcohol, we get this. And so they were making hands. So it was just radical, like what has so crazy. And so they just shut down the entire innovation thing. And but right before that, I was working on a super interesting project with them where we built what would have been the first large company brand NFT. So with one of the beer brands out of Europe, we were doing on-pack displays, and you were going to scan a code on the actual bottle, and then it was kind of like Willy Wonka, you get a golden ticket. And some of those prizes were going to be like going on the pitch with the Belgian national soccer team or whatever. And that was all going to be around Euro 2020, which didn't happen because of COVID. But I was invited to go speak about this at Davos with my colleague who was the head of European marketing. So it was an amazing time. Like, it was like literally 3 weeks before the world closed down, because that was the end of January. But it was great. The Anheuser-Busch thing was a great thing. And so after that, a friend of mine who's in the technology business was like, Mark, you have an amazing network, tons of people, you built businesses, the video game thing was really complicated and how we did it and built the back end. So he's like, there's a business where you can go help companies be successful by getting the best technology to help them do what they do, but better and more efficiently. I'm like, tell me more. So long story short, I started a consultancy about 5 years ago called GigX, which is actually was the name of our video game business way back when. But so we now go in and advise growing companies of how to get more infrastructure in the AI world, how to, get into the best data centers, how to use security services to keep yourself from being attacked. So we have a team of experts in 6 different vertical markets that we bring in for free to help business leaders kind of understand the landscape in a very objective way. And then based on what we discover in the conversation, we boil it down to like, here are 3 companies that would be a good fit for you. So we're doing the matchmaking. Basically, being smart about helping them shop for the best thing. And then our model is we get paid by the vendors because we're channel partners with them.
So when you do that, what are the statistics specifically or generally? Let's say you contact 50 companies, you go in for this free consultation. The majority of them say, yeah, we could use some of these services. Is the majority that, less?
It depends on, like anything in life, timing. Timing is everything. So dealing with, the best way for us to be successful is Jeff calls me up and is like, Mark, I have a friend who's the CFO of this company or the director of technology in that company, and they're buying another company and they need to put their stuff together. And, they have a lot going on and they're busy. Can you help them out? So referrals are always the best thing. But when we engage with someone who's like, yeah, I have a project coming up, our pitch is like, let us save you time, money, and stress. Right? We don't have an agenda. We're not selling you, XYZ company. We're here to help you, sort through the noise and then give you options. And then you can take that up to your leadership and be like, hey, we researched the whole market. These are the best things for us. So that's kind of what we're doing.
That's really smart. It reminds me a lot of our industry in that, blockchain is definitely a female type energy. And you've seen it time and again where people will come into town and maybe they're on their last dollar. They've been to 10 events before and they're just need a place to stay or, they need some food to eat. But that spirit of coming in free is an amazing proposition because there's no threat to it. It's like, let me just come in and help you. And it seems like our community is all about help. Have you seen that? I'm sure you see all corners of the community, but do you see that in general, that a community is that we're in, whether it's blockchain, crypto, and AI, to help each other?
I mean, I think community is the most important thing. And the reason I like this particular event is like, Michael Turpin's done an amazing job of, like you say, building a great community. And, people have their ups and downs, but, there's a lot of persistence, like seeing you and seeing other people who, I've had a relationship with for, 8 years. I mean, that's really good. So I think when you distill it down, what's really important, especially in the blockchain and crypto community, is trust. Right? It's like, okay, all these people are telling us, like, who can I trust? And that's really important. And, as a derivative of all my work I did in crypto, a finance company reached out to me 4 years ago and asked me to be their crypto expert. So they are a bankruptcy reorg company. So we worked on, at the time, what was the biggest crypto bankruptcy. It was a lending platform called Cred. And Cred was actually...
Not to be confused with KRED.
No, CRED, right. Yeah, so they were actually a lending platform similar to Celsius, which we all know.
Yes, unfortunately.
We worked on that as well. But like they were featured here, X years ago. And so we worked on a variety of, blockchain reorgs, everything from, Cred to Celsius to FTX to, all these different things. So, you learn a lot there because there are these people who are investors or creditors who believed in this business. Poof, the business went up in smoke. They're owed a lot of money. People are stressed out and so like that was just a really, really interesting business. I still consult with them when those sorts of projects come up. And we also help on that side, we also help with fundraising for, profitable companies that have real earnings, EBITDA earnings. And, again, a lot of companies or a lot of people think about things in a traditional way. And when you change your perspective a little bit and like, wow, there's a different way to do things, that kind of opens up people's world. So like, I'll give you an example. How many companies do you know, like, hey, I want to go raise money?
A ton,
right? And what do most people do? They're like, oh, let me go raise equity. Well, if you have a business and you think it's going to go from here to here, the last thing you want to do is sell X% of the business at this price when it's going to be worth that price a few years ago. So these guys do something very smart. They do debt funding. So if you're profitable and you're growing, and if you need $10 million, wouldn't you rather borrow $10 million?
Factor it.
It's a cost of, well, it's cheaper than factor.
It is cheaper, you're right.
It's a cost of goods. You're paying more than, maybe you'll pay 10%. But if your business is growing quickly, you're still going to own the same equity then as you own today.
And Mark, you bring up a really good point, and I wish we could have this much longer interview, but we've got about a minute left, less than that. But you bring up a really interesting point. There's all types of founders, but let's just call them two founders. One founder has the short-term, short view, and then one has the long. The short view typically are those, I'm going to give up everything now for the money so I could grow this thing. And then you have the long view. What's the difference in attitude between the two?
I think you bring up a great point. Being a recovering startup guy, I don't know if you ever recover.
I'm on my 20th, and this year I got rid of 3, so I'm on the downslope.
So I think you think about, do you want to be a transactional person? Do you just want to build it and sell it? Or do you want to build like a real business that continues over time? And I'm not saying one is better than the other, but there's a fork in the road and you're going to make very different decisions based on what you're looking to do.
Before you even get to the fork, right?
I think what a lot of entrepreneurs fail to ask themselves is like, do I just want to build this and flip it, which is fine? Or do I want to build it and I want it to be a cash flowing thing and I want my kids to take it over? You're going to make different decisions when you get, you're going to have to go right or left, right?
Yeah.
But I think most entrepreneurs fail to really have that conversation with themselves. And there's nothing wrong being like, hey, I'm going to build it and I'm an AI and I'm going to flip it. I'm going to make a bunch of money. That's great. You're going to make very different decisions.
Absolutely.
To build and scale.
Yeah, and the people who participate will be different.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we're at the end of our interview. And Mark, like I said, dude, I've respected you. I love you. I'm going to tell you something. You're one of the kindest guys. I'm not going to call you nice, but you're kind. Every time I saw you, you always had a smile and you always shook my hand, and I always remembered that. Now, for those that are watching this, would you give a bit of advice to those who are younger? Let's talk to the younger folk, right? That are, whether they're getting into Web3 or it's brick and mortar and they're pushing a broom. What kind of advice would you give? Fatherly advice, brotherly advice to these people who are getting into business, right?
Well, yeah, I have 2 sons who are just recent college grads. That's why I brought it up, because I was sorry. That's very close to home.
Yeah.
I think it's like we talked about earlier, like be a good person. Like that's kind of obvious, but I think do something that you care about, that you're excited about, and something where you think that you can make a difference. And the thing that I like about early stage companies is that you can see a correlation of output to your input. Whereas you work at a big company and you're shoveling the coal in the furnace and maybe it comes out. So I think look at what you really like to do and don't be afraid. Like don't say, oh, I can't do that, or I'm not trained to do this. Like go for it. Do it. Like the only regret is X years down the line, you're going to be, I should have done that. Like, don't be that person. Go do it. And if it doesn't work out, you fold up the tent. I'll give you a quick example. Okay. Both my sons started a web design company about a year ago. And it's a very competitive business. It's very commoditized, but they thought they wanted to do it.
Sure.
So they built the business, they put the company together, they got a couple of clients, and then finally my older son's like, hey dad, this isn't really working out. I think we're gonna close it down. I'm like, okay. He goes, oh, I feel really bad. I feel like I failed. I'm like, how many people actually went out? That's right. Put the company together, put the website together, they got customers, sold. Like you have that experience.
Success upon success upon success.
So the next time around,
That's right.
you have that experience. Don't beat yourself up. You did it. It didn't get you what you want to do. Close the chapter and move on. And now he's planning his next thing.
So that's the difference between smarts and wisdom. Your son, how old was he at the time, or how?
He was 22.
22. He gains wisdom. People who have wanted to do a business for 30 years, he has more wisdom than that person.
Exactly. So I think that's really important. Like, go do it, but also, and this is the other thing too, think about the logistics. Think about like, okay, you're going to be doing X, Y, and Z. If you're going to be running an accounting company and you're not good at numbers, and you don't like detail-oriented stuff, that's probably not the right thing for you, right? I think have a little of that internal conversation. Don't spend time on a business plan, but what really matters is when your offering hits the market, when your offering hits a client, because you think you're going to do this, and then when you get to market, the market tells you something, you're going to have to weave and bob and pivot, right? So, I mean, being flexible is super important. Like not being in your own head, right? Oh, this didn't work out. It's like, well, when something doesn't work out, it's telling you something else.
That's right.
Right? Listen to that. So, and I think that really boils down to like, hey, have humility and like try and have some fun along the way too.
That's right.
Yeah. Life's too short to be like bummed about shit.
Well, Mark, it's a pleasure sitting with you and spending time with you. Like always. How long are you going to be here?
Leaving tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad I got to see it. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. We're going to say goodbye from Puerto Rico, Tokenize 2024.